Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, I will explain about my proposal thesis, the relationship between student stress and psychological well-being among USIM undergraduate students. Before that, my name is Puteri Fatihatun Nabila binti Ahmad Kamal 11711052. So let's start. For the research background, in this study, it will see whether the stress faced by the students will affect his psychological well-being or not. Students are commonly seen as an integral part of every country's culture. The time at the university is both mesmerizing and stressful. Besides, the increase in stress symptoms among students has often associated with current environmental factors, especially ahead of exam season. This scenario is similar when we state that we have no mood or we have no interest in learning. So, poor psychological well-being among university students is increasingly noticeable. Psychological stability and interpersonal relationships are very critical topics due to their pervasive effect on other aspects of student life, such as cognitive functioning and physical health. Next, the problem statement. Stress in the place of learning, regardless of whether university students or students in school do exist and face increasing challenges while studying from time to time. According to the National Morbidity Health Survey 2017, the Ministry of Health revealed 11.2% of adolescents in the group had suicidal ideas, 9% planned to commit suicide, and 10.1% attempted suicide. With such cases, we see that students have stress problems with the problems in terms of family, learning, friendships, and so on. Therefore, this will cause the well-being of students to be bad and not good. For the research questions for this research are, firstly, what is the level of student stress among USIM undergraduate students? Secondly, what is the difference in stress levels among male and female students? Thirdly, what is the relationship between student stress and psychological well-being among USIM undergraduate students? So, research objectives for this research are, firstly, to study the level of student stress. Secondly, to study the difference in stress level among male and female students. And thirdly, to investigate the relationship between student stress and psychological well-being among USIM undergraduate students. The research hypothesis. The hypothesis of this study was made to see the relationship between student stress and psychological well-being among Islamic Science University of Malaysia undergraduate students. So, hypothesis 1, there is a relationship between differences in stress level among male and female students, and hypothesis 2, there's a relationship between student stress and psychological well-being among USIM undergraduate students. For the significance of study, this study can be used as a guide so that students can identify the extent of stress among students, and students can also know that stress is related to psychological well-being. It can also provide awareness to certain communities and organizations to help university or psychology counselors to see students who have stress where they have a relationship between psychological well-being or not. It can provide findings and information collected from this study is important as reference material to the university management to complete important tests for students who have such relevance. And society can create healthy living practices especially in well-being of society, and this research can also help identify the statistics in society every year. The scope of study. It focuses on Islamic Science University of Malaysia in Nilai and will focus on undergraduate students of Islamic Science University of Malaysia Nilai in years 1, 2, 3 and 4 only. This study also only involved undergraduate students of the Islamic Science University of Malaysia Nilai because it is easy for the researcher to study the study and not far from the researcher to study the research to be done to the students. It also focuses on one independent variable only because the researcher is not able to make a study with many variables. For the definition of terms, stress. In general, stress is a condition that responds or symptoms related to emotional, physical, physiological, and psychological. Stress is also known as the actual process of a fight or run reaction and can be associated with threats to the central nervous system out of control. According to Lazarus and Folman, 1984, stress is defined as an individual's physical and psychological reaction to an event or object or which is appraised as a threat. So, psychological well-being. The term psychological well-being is used to describe the mental well-being and overall functioning of a person. Psychological well-being is defined by the author of a study published in Applied Psychology, Health and Well-being as the combination of feeling good and working effectively. Psychological well-being refers to the simple notion of a person's welfare, happiness, advantage, interest, utility, and quality of life. So, in the chapter 2, for the literature review, according to Ahmad Zamri Khairani, May 2019, on his study of improving psychological well-being among undergraduates, how creativity can contribute. For the research objective and research question for this study, to assess levels of psychological well-being among undergraduates and to suggest how creativity can contribute to the enhancement of the psychological well-being. For the results show that 256 undergraduates fall into the low and moderate low levels with majority of them are from the first year cohort. According to Michael Harris, June 2013, on his study of the relationship between psychological well-being and perceived wellness in graduate level counseling students. For the research objective or research question of his study to understand psychological well-being and perceived wellness in a sample of graduate students preparing to become counselors in a CARKIP, accredited counseling program at a state university in Pennsylvania. For the results of this study could have implications for additional problems such as the failure of self-care among counselors or the non-existence or non-use of adequate wellness assessment tools during counselors' development. For the theory, the first theory in this study is the student stress inventory was developed by the researchers based on a synthesis of two theories. The first theory is the general adaptation syndrome. It is proposed by Hans Selye. The general adaptation syndrome is the three-stage mechanism explaining the physiological changes that the body undergoes while under stress. Second is the environmental stress. It indicates that environmental stresses such as radiation, physical structure, non-ergonomic furniture, natural hazards, pollution, disease, and climate change have a direct effect on the health of individuals and social groups. The second theory in this study is the theory of psychological well-being is based on a person-centered philosophers such as Carl Rogers. This theory maintains that a key component of growth is to be truly heard so that the self will come in line with experiences and achieve congruence. The theory practitioners have confidence in individuals' trustworthiness and their inherent capacity to move towards self-actualization and well-being when the right conditions are in place. The Islamic perspectives. In Islam, stress can be overcome by improving one's relationship with God, maintains good relations with fellow human beings. According to Fariza, 2016, in her study has explained that the expectation that height to God has succeeded in removing all the sorrows and hardships experienced as the story of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam in Surah Yusuf, verse 86. He said, I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah, and I know from Allah that which you do not know. This proves that God is where human beings complain of all the weaknesses and difficulties experienced in daily life. Besides, psychology in Islam is used in everyday practices but under different guises, such as spiritualism. Islam values the importance of good mental health and emotional well-being. The Quran can be used as a guide to those suffering from emotional distress and aims to lead people to a meaningful quality of life. There is no disease that Allah has created except that He also has created its treatment in Hadith. For the research design, in this study, the research design is used the quantitative approach, which is a non-experimental design such as survey design. For the sample design, it consists of both male and female students who aged 19 to 28 years old. Target population of respondents is from the Islamic Science University of Malaysia, USIM, undergraduate students. Respondents were selected from study in all faculties. Consists of 100 students and the sample selection in my study used a simple random sample. The data collection and procedures. The data is collected through an online survey tool or survey based through Google Form. The participants were asked to provide demographical data and complete the questionnaires, and the students are given a questionnaire from class to class by the researcher. For the data analysis, the quantitative data collected were evaluated using SPSS version 2.0, and on Microsoft Excel, the visual presentations were made. And lastly, for the instrumentation in this study divided into three sections, which are Section A, Section B, and Section C. Section A is about general information for participants such as age, gender, and courses. For the Section B, the inventory is used student stress inventory. It is developed to measure the level of stress among university students. It contains 14 negative items to measure 4 subscales, which are subscale 1 is physical, subscale 2 is interpersonal relationship, subscale 3 academic, and subscale 4 environmental factor. For the Section C, the inventory used is RIF scales of psychological well-being. It focuses on measuring multiple facets of psychological well-being. The RIF inventory consists of 54 questions. It is designed to measure 6 theoretically motivated constructs of psychological well-being, which are autonomy, environmental mastery, personal growth, positive relations with others, purpose in life, and self-acceptance. So that's it. Thank you for lending your ears. Bye-bye.